practice. I could tell myself to relax it. Will be better next time I try. And even if I still can't do it, yeah, you know that I'm gonna stick to it. Yes, it's all about going through it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoopsie, whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see I'm better at this today. Woo! Whoopsies, whoopsie, whoopsie, whoopsies.
I'm a little embarrassed when I look at my drawing compared to this. I'm just not getting anywhere with this. It makes me wanna hide. Aw, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide.
You should have seen mine the first time I tried. It took a lot of whoopsies to look this way.
No one's perfect on their first day. Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay.
It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies.
Well, what about this? I want to jump rope, but nope, I just can't do it.
Well, not yet. Come on and practice with me. You'll see there's nothing to it.
Whoa! Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see I'm better at this today. Woo!
It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. I know it's hard to follow before it's too late. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me. It's hard. Wake up.
What is up? What is up, you guys? It's a chill day today, alright? We're gonna relax. We're gonna take some breaths. Alright, we're gonna look at what we've done so far. Alright? Might have been a little overwhelming the last couple days, but it's alright. Alright, we're gonna make it through everything, alright? Trust on this. Alright. How you guys all feeling right now? Any major questions from the last couple of days you guys want us to tackle immediately, right off the bat? Get them out of here. Go and lower this a little bit. And wait for this. There we go. I wanted the music to get to the little cool chill part. What's up? What's up? We are Rootkit, a non-profit based here in the US of A. We are registered and everything, so use us as your tax haven, please. We are desperate for some donato. That make up a new word? I don't know what I say half the time, right? I just say things. Alright. So we do giveaways every single week during the stream. So if you're joining us, they're brand new, hey, get in on this giveaway. If you are coming back, hey, the week 5 giveaway is up. It is live. It is ready for you to enter. And we are giving away another amazing sweater. I don't have my sweater on right now, all right? But some of you guys have seen it, and they are pretty epic, all right? It's completely free. All you gotta do is sub to our YouTube channel and a bunch of other very basic things that cost no money absolutely at all. Now I'm gonna put a link here into the chats. This is for if you like what we're doing and you want to help contribute financially to our mission, you can do it here. And depending on how much you donate, you can get stickers, t-shirt, and the collab sweater, which we're giving away for free this week. And look at this t-shirt. This t-shirt is epic. I love this t-shirt. Now, we have an anonymous donor that is matching all donations 1 for 1 up to the first 10,000 donations. They'll be donating here any day soon. They'll be donating at the end of every single month while we're streaming. We have big pillars here, all right, like 6K for 24 hours straight, shaving my head live here on stream, and shaving my beard, which no one wants to see, so we don't need to get that one. All right, that one's okay not to get to. Alrighty, again, like I said, we're chilling. All right, we're chilling today. It's just review, take some breathers, relax a little bit. If you want to follow along, everything to get our comp sci cert is listed on our GitHub as a bullet point list. All right, we're in operating systems right now, and we've been chugging through it. We talked about how computers boot up, Windows, DOS, some PowerShell, and then we started getting into Unix madness. Lots of things we've covered so far. Now, the best thing about moving forward, you know, starting with operating systems and moving forward, is this stuff is usually more readily accessible for you to mess with, play with. You can type these commands into your computer. You can see what they do. You can play with them, interact with them, which I highly recommend that you guys do. You know, today, tomorrow, the days moving forward, mess around with these. When we get into programming, you're gonna mess with these more, so don't worry. You'll get lots of experience with at least a handful of these commands because they're very common to utilize. Again, this is how you navigate the operating system, and you got to know how to do this in order to navigate it effectively and be, you know, a good comparable dev. Let's see here. Any questions? Anything in particular you guys want to see? Again, go over, chat about. Now I put in the, also for everyone that is a Patreon member or Discord Premium member, I am in the events chat, so you can drop in there and chat away if you would like to chat and talk a little bit. I also put in the 100 days chat after our stream yesterday that, like, the little challenges I would give you after that is pretty much what I just talked about right now, is just going back and just chatting, going back and just trying these commands, ushering them into the command line, testing them out, you know, make a file. delete that file. Maybe make another file and move it around. Maybe mess around with its permissions, change its permissions around. Who knows? You know, maybe you don't know what permissions you're actually changing, but you're changing the permissions. All right, it's all right. You can always delete the file at the end. No harm to come, especially if you're running it as a virtual machine. All right, I went back and saw where I misunderstood the yes mommy 123 thing yesterday. You were trying to string together commands, but it wouldn't run. You moved on before reasoning why it didn't. Could we revisit that? I don't remember what exactly I was trying to do there, but we can revisit it on a couple fronts, because there was a thing or two I did want to mention. It's not essential, but it is something that will happen. I don't know if some of you guys saw it. So, for example, let's see here. We'll go ahead and do it on Ubuntu. Let me pull up my Ubuntu. This is not the pretty one. I want to open it in terminal. So you can even see here the difference in the look. If I go to the Ubuntu one on here, and if I go to the Ubuntu one on here, they're the exact same, but they just look different. It doesn't mean they're different, right? Yeah. So what I wanted to mention was that, was it in for this one also? Let me see. Man touch. Do a man touch. That's how you know it's legit. Alright. Where are we right now? What's in here? Let's do touch. Test 1, test 2. Alright. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention also. So in some of these commands for creation of files, you can create multiple files, or creating a directory. You can create multiple directories at once. So you can touch and create multiple files. So I can say, you know, file 1 space file 2 space file 3. Again, you're not allowed to have spaces in Linux. All right, no spaces allowed. So don't do spaces. Those are interpreted as completely different commands or options or whatever. So you can see here I have spaces, and if I press enter and we do an ls, you'll see that I now have file 1, file 2, which I misspelled, and God, I'm terrible. All right, well, all three of those you can see are made. And then for your renaming question, there was nothing special that was going on. It was just showing that if you use move command, you can move files around. Whoops. So I can I can use move to rename a file, like fix the misspelling on this file. But not only that, I can move it and rename it at the same time. So if I do cooldir, I'm going to move it into there, but I can also give it a name if I want, which I'll give it the name file 2, which is the proper name. So now there was nothing that printed out, which means it went successfully. If I do an ls, you can see that file is now gone. And if we cd into this one was the correctly typed one, all right? It used to look like this, mistypo. We put it in this directory, and now it is spelled correctly. So if we go in here, we can see now it's in that directory and it's spelled correctly. Does that answer your question there, Kwai? I don't remember exactly what we were talking about or what I was going over. All right, perfect. Yeah. So, what else do you guys want to chat about, talk about? Since we're on the Linux section, you know, just quick review, you know, you're just clearing the screen, all right? Your path is usually, you can find out where your path is. Also, with the tilde here means you're in your home directory, but it's not just visual, it's actual, you can use it for actual practical usages. So you can do stuff like cd and then tilde, and that will actually take you to your home directory because it's just an alias for your home directory. Then that allows you to do potentially like new interesting things, like if I'm all the way in root, let's just go into bin, for example. All right, so I'm in bin. Even though I'm all the way here, if I want to make a file in my home directory, we can do that from here. We have several different ways. We have the absolute path or the relative path. Also, we just learned that the tilde is an alias, which is an absolute path alias. So we could do stuff like touch and then this slash my new file, and that will work. That just created a file in our home directory called my new file. We could also do touch and then again the absolute path, so that's going to be home because that's where all the user profiles live. We can see which user we are by looking right here, which is going to be QFC 9, and then we can make a new file, my new file 2. And then we have our relative way we can make a file, which we know we're in one file deep from the root, because you can see here's the root of the directory and then we're in bin. So if we do .. we're back up at the root again. So now we can go down to home and then to the QFC9 and make another file called my new file 3. Cannot touch, no such file, no such, cannot touch, no such file or directory. It did not like that. Maybe touch is only meant for making files in the directory you're currently in. But regardless, in other commands, this would be a way you can traverse and do things via a relative path. So even though it's given an error right now. And so if we just do cd, that will take us back to our home directory, or we could do cd tilde, that will do the exact same thing. And do an ls, we'll see that our my new file and my new file 2 were created. Can we go over what an alias is and how to make them? For PowerShell, yeah, we can. We can definitely revisit that. All right, so let's go and open up PowerShell. So Slick asked about aliases and how we can go about creating them. So again, in PowerShell, it's going to be verb and then your noun. So we want to get the aliases. So that will print out all of the aliases that are currently available to us. And again, PowerShell is mapping these one for the underlying PowerShell command. All right, so we can also make our own aliases in here if we would like. Let me go and shrink this up. It's pretty big. I see you lost the H in your name. Look, Microsoft does some weird stuff. I don't know how they generate these names. All right, let's see here. Making aliases. So we know that get alias will get us an alias. We also know there's a verb called set. So most likely it's set alias is the one how we can deduce that set alias is going to be how we create a new alias. But if you didn't know, that's okay. You can go Google it. How to make an alias PowerShell. All right, you don't have to say in PowerShell. All right, it's implied when you just write PowerShell at the end. You could also put PowerShell at the very beginning. Again, this is going back to the earlier days when we talked about Googling stuff. So we can go and click on this Microsoft link and we can see, look at that. It's called new alias. All right, so not set alias, new alias. They also have a set alias. We can go look through what each one of these are. So this is how we can create an alias. It looks like we need to give it a name and a value. These are the only things that are not in the, excuse me, in brackets. So that means these are going to be required. And look at that, they even come with examples. So we can go ahead and look here and we can see to make a new alias, we're going to give this alias a name of list, and then it's going to run the get child idle commandlet. which means that it's going to print out everything in our current directory, aka the ls command or the dir command, doing the equivalent of that. And then you can see here we got more detailed ones where we can set one called C. It will get child items, but we can also give it a description and do some additional options if we want. There's lots of things here that you can do, and you can see the parameters and a bunch of options here. Well, let's go ahead and go about creating one of these, shall we? So let's go through the example that they got here. So new tag alias, all right, space tag name, and what do we want to call this alias? Let's call it rootkit, right? And what do we want this to do? Well, let's go ahead and just have it print out or do like a dir or an ls command, since that's very easy and visually we can understand what's going on. So let's go ahead and type that in, bam, and if we press enter, nothing printed out, so everything should be good. So now if we try to type in the command rootkit, you can see, again, a little bit slower, I typed in the command rootkit. Now, if I press enter on that, you'll see it prints out everything that is in this folder, just like the dir or ls command would do. So it's that easy to create an alias. And you'll see here on the side, there's lots of commands we can search. So if you want to see everything with aliases, we can just type an alias. There's export, import, remove, get, new, and set. Let's go and see what set does. Creates or changes an alias. So this is a valid way to create an alias also. You could use set. This also allows you to change a current alias to something else if you want. And then we have the delete alias. So let's go ahead and look at that. Delete alias. Why are you not pulling up now? Alias. Oh, remove alias, my bad. Remove alias, and the only required thing is this, because it's not inside of brackets, it's outside of brackets. So that's going to be the name of the alias we want to remove. So go ahead and clear this, and let's go ahead and delete this alias that we made. So we want remove, gosh darn it, remove alias. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and remove the rootkit alias, rootkit. And it's gonna want the tag name. No. Remove alias is not recognized, commandlet. So always read your errors. So remove alias, the term remove alias is not recognized as a name of a commandlet. All right, those are the things that we're running. Everything is called a commandlet in PowerShell. Maybe it wants me to do my capitalization here. Nope. Did I misspell something? That's the next thing we gotta look at here. It looks like I spelt it correct. So this is a great a great example of how things aren't always in sync. I did spell these right? R-E-M-O-V-E, TAC A-L-I-A-S. So yeah, this is a great example of things you will come across as we move forward when you start venturing yourself. Half the time it will be because you did something wrong. Half the time it could be because it wasn't provided to you in the first place. So this means my PowerShell, I believe my PowerShell is out of date. So every time I open up my PowerShell, at least it tells me to do it. Or was it not persistent on? No. Okay. I see. I see what's going on here. These bastards. Okay. So what's going on here? Let's go ahead and go back to alias. New alias. So this is creating a new alias, and it looks like, yeah, right here. This is why it's important sometimes to read all of the docs in their completion, because there's a lot of times, more often than not, there's usually a gotcha. All right, it's kind of frustrating, but make sure you read the description. So what happened here is we did create a new alias successfully, but if we read the fine print here, when we create a new alias, it will be for our current PowerShell session only. It's temporary. It only exists as long as that window was open, but since I closed it, it no longer exists. So if we wanted to persist it, make it stay as a permanent thing, it says here we can use the export alias commandlet to save your alias information to a file. And then we would have to import it later. And there's probably options in here to auto import your aliases. But yeah, that's why the delete or the remove did not work, because it wasn't actually a real saved alias that was implemented. It was just temporary. Any questions on that? So that's great that that came up, because this will happen to you constantly. For example, it happens to us all the time when we have to do stuff on AWS and their command line. It's quite painful sometimes. It's even worse sometimes because their documentation will be out of date, and it will have a more up-to-date version, and things won't work exactly the same. And this is a part of the cancer that you'll get of the programming job. All right, this is a common occurrence where things are either hidden in the description, or things will be out of sync. The documentation will be either more up to date or out of date compared to what you have. It's not a uncommon occurrence, and you kind of have to do some guessing. Again, the whole oopsie and everything about trying, failing, retrying, failing 20 more times, you gotta get used to that. You gotta do it. If you're not doing it already and you have access to these commands, then you're in trouble, because you're not going to pass the exam if you're not fortifying this and used to making mistakes. Especially when you do get a job afterwards, it's a part of your job description to test and break things. Now, of course, you don't want to break things and important things, you know. Usually you'll have a duplication of stuff, so you'll have a copy of it that's locally running, so you can break it and it's okay. And the copy that's fully live, that one you don't want to break. So the local one is meant for you to mess around with, break and destroy, and then rebuild, and that's okay. But the live one, you want to make sure your stuff is very good before it goes out. Let's see here. Hey, welcome mistake. Yep. Yeah, the documentation on some stuff, it only gets worse. This is really good documentation. Microsoft does a really good job with this documentation, because not only do you see on their site a little sidebar here with everything, you can change the version, because each version will have subtle changes. All right. LTS means long-term support. So if you're making a product, it's better to go with something that's labeled as LTS, because it will be very stable and will have support for a very, very long time. They have the syntax laid out very well here. The bracket stuff might be confusing to some people at first, but you just kind of got to get used to that and learn it. But then they have the nice description here, very well laid out with examples, and not just one example, but 2 examples. All right, very, very rare. Other documentation will not have stuff like this. All right, and the parameters are nicely laid out with links here, so you can learn more about what they're even talking about. All right, very, very nice. Some cancer documentation would be AWS docs or NVIDIA docs. They're not good. Let's go ahead and look at some of them. Let's look at the NVIDIA TensorRT docs. Oh boy, here we go. So let's look at API reference. There you go. These are the docs here. So as you can see, not as fun. You get the sidebar here that's nice and useful, has everything laid out. But this, not as fun. No examples. The very brief on what's going on. So this is peak. I'm telling you guys, this is the best of the best. Don't get too used to these types of this type of documentation. It only gets worse from here. it's only downhill. Let's see. Yeah, their documentation is really good. I've had to use it a lot when working with PowerShell scripting. Even some of the more popular products have awful documentations for user. Yeah, like AWS. Yeah, AWS has some pretty terrible documentation. If you guys want to know how bad it is, we can go look right now, and you can also ask Taylor in the Discord how much he loves AWS documentations. I don't know. Let's click on Lambda API reference. Oh, it's kind of hard to explain because you might assume because there's lots of text here that it's really good, but trust me when I say it's no bueno. Mostly because a lot of the stuff that they list here is not linked, so you don't get useful references. You have to actually continue Googling and figure out what is even going on. Things like this aren't linked. This one kind of looks like it may be linked, but I don't know how to explain it. They're on the sub tier of things, all right? But this is what their documentation looks like. Alrighty. What other questions do you guys have? What other things would you guys like to see, talk about, chat about? More examples of. Again, this goes for as long as you guys like. We can cut it short. You know, you guys can just chill out, or you guys can ask questions. You know, this is pretty much your guys' tutoring time. Fire hose of information with little assistance to match the information to real world solutions. Yeah, that's kind of that's a good description of AWS docs. Is there's a lot of info here, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, and it doesn't really tell you a lot of the time of how it's used best or when you should use it. And I don't know, whenever you look for something specific, there's usually not an answer for it. Like, you'll just get things like this, which really irritates me because for the type, they'll do stuff like this is an oddity because usually they'll say like the tracer config type, but they won't link to it like how they are right here. And so you'll have to go on another tab and open it up and go on another rabbit hole search to figure out what it is. Again, all of these companies are always improving their products. So everything that you see is subject to change. Everything is always being updated. It's always live. It's not like kind of how you're used to in regards to tools, like a toolbox, a saw, whatever. This is more akin to like your cell phone. If you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you know, every couple of months you're getting a new update. Every year they're doing a massive big update that changes a lot of stuff, maybe the look of your phone. It's the same for a lot of these docs and for a lot of these companies. Just because some of the documentation is absolute cancer right now and it makes you want to just commit Sudoku, doesn't mean it's going to be that bad in a year from now. A great example is going to be machine learning documentation. So stuff like PyTorch and TensorFlow, when they first came out, they were atrocious. The only people that could read them were math magicians, all right? Yes, that is the proper term. We're going to be using that the whole time. They are magicians, and we will refer to them as math magicians. It was very heavy in its mathy language and was not programmer friendly at all. So a lot of the time that you would have to spend to learn the things, even though they were simplistic, it was hard to understand. It would take several days just to get an inch forward because you would have to also be Googling these terms and figuring out what the hell all these mathy terms are. Now it's great. A lot of it is really user friendly, programmer friendly. You can kind of just go in there and plug and play and just get stuff running. They've abstracted away from a lot of the mathy logic behind the scenes. You can still find it and deep dive into it, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Let's see, touch on moving from conceptual knowledge of programming to getting into making your own ideas reality. I know it was really hard for me to get that step in the past. Yep. Yeah, so your only limitation in the programming realm is pretty much just your imagination. And then after you conceptualize things, then next will be time, and depending on what you're doing, money. Anything that you can think of can be done in the programming world. You are pretty much playing with God mode on. Anything is completely possible. The only thing that is your limitation is the physical world. So hardware and oh, thanks for the follow, Slick. Hardware and God, I know I'm blinking, and yourself, like actual time that you have, and then there's a possibility of money because buying things might cost money. For example, there's a lot of documents that were published in the 60s, 80s, 70s, 50s, 40s, 30s, going way back, 100-year-old papers that conceptualized and wrote out how you would go about developing all of these machine learning algorithms that we're using and a lot of the modern day robotics that you see. Their imagination was on God tier, all right? They were fully opened in thinking about the next great thing. And on paper, because they didn't really have access to computers like we do today, you know, on paper, they could write everything out exactly to specifications and prove it and then publish the results. They were not limited in regards to that. They were limited in regards to the hardware of the day because the computers were pretty much non-existent. And then in the later like 80s and stuff, computers were there, but their hardware was lagging behind. So that's like the last formula, the last secret thing in your ideas and producing them in the like startup formula is timing. Timing is a big important thing, especially if you want to launch your idea or your product. You can have a great idea. The only thing is it too far ahead of its time? Because that is a legitimate thing. If it's too far ahead, that can mean that the hardware to run it isn't capable enough right now, or people aren't ready to adopt it yet. Again, machine learning, you know, everything people are producing have been thought of decades ago. The hardware is now, just now there and capable enough to do the things that you see. And we can do more. People have already thought of how to do more, how to make essentially the Terminator. The plan is already there. It's already outlined. The hardware isn't there yet. That's the only limitation. It's the physical world that is the limitation, not the mental or what your hands can type out and do. It's the physical everything. So that's the only thing that will hold you back some of the time is hardware people. Let's see. Any other questions we got? Yeah, because hardware is important. And you'll see more and more, because consumer hardware is like your GPU and stuff that you can buy for a reasonable price is also getting a lot better and better also. For example, you've seen ray tracing. They've been doing ray tracing in the other one. What's it called? Slick ray gridding, ray blocking. What is it called? I forget right now, but if you remember, you can put it in the chat. That's been around for a while. It's been only accessible to big corporations that have server farms accessible to them, but just now is the consumer, the normal everyday hardware that you can afford, actually here to where you can now run this crazy stuff at home on your computer. So again, bringing it back to the hardware's usually your first limitation, like that's it. Our AI aimbot, for example, we released that. It's in a pretty weak state, to be honest, but it's meant that way because a lot of people have mid to low end GPUs, and that is out of the box capable to run on mid to low end GPUs. If you have a higher end GPU, you could squeeze a little bit more performance out of it, but it's just now becoming reality. And by now I mean like the last 5 years, where you can start doing things like machine learning on your computer at a reasonable pace, and actually take advantage of stuff. Path tracing, that's the word. There's ray tracing and path tracing. What other questions you guys got? I'm out of coffee. At the end of today's stream, we are pulling the new winner. All right, the winner for the last week. So make sure you stick around so you can see the new winner. Yeah, since the IAM bot isn't a service hosted on insane hardware, it's constrained by what others have at their disposal. That also relates to other companies working on improving machine learning. Yes, most of the machine learning models that are crazy that you see and you want to, maybe you want to download and run it, you can't. Even if they gave it to you, most likely you cannot run it unless you forked up for the latest 4080 or maybe a 3080 Ti. You just physically can't. The biggest limitation is the VRAM on your card. Machine learning takes a lot of VRAM, so a lot of the RAM that's embedded on your GPU. Consumer grade hardware usually has very high clock rates. It's actually more performant in some cases than the server grade hardware. All right, but the server grade hardware has insanely more RAM than the consumer grade, and I'm talking like up to 10 times more RAM than the consumer hardware. For example, let's look at like the latest NVIDIA 4080. So one of these bad boys has 16 gigs of RAM. It's going to cost you what, $1,500, $2,000. And this is a pretty capable card. You can actually do some serious machine learning on it. But what server companies are doing, and like some people like OpenAI and other big companies that you can surely list off, they're on a different tier. All right, they're running on a different level right now, because you got to remember, the consumer hardware is going to be quite like, I don't even want to put a year on it, but I'll try like 3 to 5 years behind server grade stuff. And that's pretty generous, I'm gonna be honest. It's probably closer to 5+ years than the server grade stuff. The latest server grade hardware from NVIDIA was it the H100? I believe it was the H100, because the A100 was the older one, right? Or was the A100 the... let's see here. Yeah, it was the H100. The H100s are the new high-end server tier stuff. You can get access to this yourself if you utilize Google Cloud or AWS or any of the other cloud providers. They have this hardware and you can use it by the hour. And it's actually not unreasonable to use by the hour. So if we do AWS pricing or EC2 pricing, we'll take a look at that after I show this off. So H100 is the card. This is one card for the server grade stuff. Now what's going on here? Well, big boy stuff. As you can see, let's look here. They have insanely more larger stats than the other one, but they're rocking 80 gigs, all right, of RAM. They also have lots of other stats that are very important, but for just the simple-minded approach, like, hey, look, you can see the difference quickly. 80 gigs for one of these cards. But not only that, you usually don't get this with the one card configuration. You're usually getting 8 of them in one server. That's how they usually sell these, is by 8, all right? So consumer world, 16 gigs, $2,000. You know, that's high end. That's unaffordable for most people. And this will be great for a lot of home lab machine learning. Big boy server world, you're getting 80 gigs per card and you're usually buying 8 of them. So you're getting what? 800, 600 something. You're getting over a half a terabyte of VRAM dedicated. It's pretty, that's what I mean by like on a different level. And you need multiple of these 8 configured H1 configured servers in order to train and get the models that OpenAI are using. You can look up blog posts and stuff in regards to how they show that off. If we go here to AWS, we can see you can actually run this hardware. If we go for instance types, this is called, in the more proper term for GPU stuff and machine learning hardware, is going to be called accelerated computing. All right, so if you ever see that word, that's in reference to GPU hardware. All right, so if we check out accelerated computing, you can see the boxes here. Kind of confusing, but the name right here is the type of box. So we can look up, if we go to instance types, we can go to type details. This is kind of like the crappy part of AWS I was talking about. You have this stuff you don't really know unless you know, but this little part before the period tells you what the server configuration is. So if we go here and we do P4, we're on a P4D. Here is they're running 4,000 A100s. So these aren't the H100s, these are the A100s. So the A100s are the last generation. The H100s are the brand new ones. So I guess those ones are still being rolled out very slowly. As you can see, they still have 80 gigs, and you can use them right now for $32 an hour, at least this size of a box. There's different tiers that are different prices. I guess that's the only one available, at least in Ohio. You can mess around and see that there's other boxes here. But if we look, you're getting 8 GPUs, so that's the minimum. You're running 8 of those at a minimum. You cannot run less than them. That's what I mean by they come in 8s. Any questions of that on that? There's very little reason, especially early on, why you would need hardware like that. But just know it's there. It's a thing that exists. Depending on where you go, you may be using hardware like that. The company that you work for will be obviously flipping the bill. And the best part is sometimes there will be wiggle room for you to play around, mess with, experiment, research. So maybe you are interested in machine learning, or you have a home project that you were messing around with, but you didn't have the best hardware for it, and you think it might be applicable at work. So now you might be able to reason that, hey, this could work and help out at work. Let me run it on the hardware there. And now you can get access to some beefier, crazier hardware. Does Rootkit have any plans for an H100 server in the future? Yes. But in the future, definitely in the future, we are definitely considering running one of those servers full time, but that would be a future thing, depending on how stuff goes, because it breaks down to a basic cost analysis of how much does it cost if we don't do it and we just use someone who's already doing it, or if we run it ourselves. And that's kind of a harder task to come by. I mean, $30, what, $30 an hour, 32, so what is that? That's an hour, 24 hours a day times 30 days. Yeah. 23,000. Yeah. Kind of expensive if you're running it 24/7. Usually you're not. These boxes you're not typically running 24/7 because they're more geared for training. If you wanted to do inference, which is when you're using an already trained model and you're just running it, that's called inference. There are boxes on here on this list that are more dedicated and ramped toward inference. They're even labeled INF2 and INF1. These are inference boxes, so they're meant for inference. I think these ones are using AWS's custom silicon. So I'm not too familiar with it because I haven't used it myself. But you don't need all this hardware all the time. Usually people are only running it for a couple of hours. Let's see here. Main concern would be creating your own solution as well as, yeah, because you got to now make the software and the hardware. Again, just so you guys see here, kind of went past it, but here's your operating system. As you can see, you're going to be using pretty much Linux 90% of the time when you're on servers, when you're on any type of development environment. It's usually going to be Linux. This is just generic Linux. This is going to be Red Hat, which is an operating system built off of Linux. All right, and then there's only a couple here that are going to be Windows. So again, most of the time you're going to be dealing with Linux operating systems, Linux-based operating systems. What other questions do you guys got for me? Come on, you guys gotta have questions. We went through a lot of stuff. We talked about a lot of stuff. Well, if there's no questions, go ahead and ask if you have any more questions. If not, remember, the big thing is run these, do these, mess around with these, run these in your command line. Do as many of them as possible. Worst case scenario, build flashcards for them. If you have to, look at that. They're already pretty much made. Here's a term, and then here's your definition. This is pretty much everything you need to know right here. Term, definition. All right, term, definition. Those are the most important things to know for all of these, but the best way is to run them and do them because you are going to. There is no way to avoid not using this stuff because you are going to have to. It's literally a requirement for you to do just about anything you want to do in the programming world. So definitely get as much experience with it as you can. All right. So tomorrow we're going to be finishing up with Unix. We'll hit up on a couple things in regards to the kernel architecture. We'll finish up with these commands, and we'll talk about environmental variables, Vim, and how to set them. And we'll go over file permission and file and directory permissions. And I think that for the most part that might be it tomorrow. Maybe we'll touch OS because this one's, or mobile OSs, because this one's very short. It's just us talking about these terms. And I think that would probably be it for tomorrow. If you guys don't have any other questions, then we're gonna go ahead and call this good for today. Will you please go over relative versus absolute paths? Yep, sure, we can go over that. Let's see, touch on the Windows versus Linux, for which OS is better for programming. A lot of people prefer Linux. Both OSs are completely fine. Linux will have way more support typically than Windows operating systems will. The big reason why Windows operating systems have never really taken off in the past for big companies and server hardware and architecture, blah blah blah, is because it costs money to run all the licenses, and it's also a pretty hefty OS. It's not lightweight, it's pretty heavy. Linux though is free. Most of the operating systems are free to run and free to use, so free means I'm on board every day. Additionally, you can cut them down and make them very, very lightweight, and by lightweight I mean you can make them like less than 100 megabytes in size, which is very, very small. Very, very small. And then if you're using Docker in an Alpine container, it could be like 3, 4, 5 megabytes large. I don't know, let's look. That, which is, depending on the song you download, is smaller than some songs you download. An entire operating system is smaller than a song. Alpine. Let's see here. compressed 3 megabytes. So running this OS in a Docker container is going to be about 3 megabytes compressed. So when you uncompress it, of course, it's going to be bigger. But again, as you can see, this is why some people prefer to use Linux for everything over Windows. All right, absolute and relative paths. Let's do absolute versus relative. Let's see if there's any pretty pictures we can look at here. Relative path. All right, not really. So let's go through this example. You're at home. All right, you're at home. You're chilling right now, watching me, and your friends are going to this cool new hiking spot they found. All right, and they want you to join. They want you to join them. Now, when they give you the directions, most likely they'll give you like an absolute path from your house, if that is always the default starting place for you, from your house to get to that hiking place. All right, so they're going to tell you, you know, take a right, take a left, go straight 3 miles, whatever, in order to get there. All right, that's going to be the absolute path if your house is always like the default starting place. Now, let's say, you know, 3 days later, you forgot, you kind of forgot the directions, and you're at, I don't know, Burger King or something, getting yourself a good shake, and your friends hit you up and they're like, hey, we're gonna go back to that hiking place. Do you remember how to get there? And they're like, and then you tell them, no, refresh me again. I'm currently at Burger King, wherever I said. You're currently at Burger King. They're going to give you a new path to get there, and that's going to be relative to where you currently are. All right? It may require some backtracking in order to get where you need to go, or maybe you're just going straight there. That's not the point. The point is it's now relative to your new location. Before, you had the absolute directions from your house, but now you're somewhere else, so those directions won't work because you're starting completely different. So that would be relative to where you currently are. Does that kind of make sense? I think that's why I can't quite grasp it. The images don't help the definitions to me. Yeah, it's pretty much the absolute. Anytime someone gives you absolute directions, it's always going to be based off a common ground, like your house, for example. But in computer world, absolute will always be starting from the very top of your drive. The top of your disk drive or solid state drive, whatever drive you have. It always starts there. So in Linux, it's going to be the slash, and for Windows, it's going to be the C. So if I remove all this extra crap here and I just press enter, you'll see I'm at the topmost. I can't go up any more than this. This is the highest you can possibly go up on the drive. All right, this is it. Let me pull it up in PowerShell. So as you can see here, like I'm, does PWD work for that? Oh, it does. All right, I'm at the highest place I can go for all of these. All right, I can't go any higher. So if I give you directions on where to go and I start from the top going down, that is going to be an absolute path because I'm telling you how to get there from a known from a known place, because we all know where the top of the drive is. Relative, though, only works relative to where you are currently. If you're not in the right place, so if I give you directions on how to get to the hiking place for Burger King, but right now you're at McDonald's, you're not gonna be able to get there. You're gonna be somewhere completely different because it was only relative to you being at Burger King, not at McDonald's. Same thing here. If I give you a relative path and you're, I don't know, let's look at the folders. If you're inside of the program files folder and I give you a relative path to somewhere, it may not work if I'm assuming you're in the users folder. All right. So that is a major con for relative paths. But the great thing about relative paths is there's a lot less to type out. It would be a pain in the ass if, you know, I just did an LS, we have a folder here called Videoland, right? It would be a pain in the ass if instead of me doing a relative path here where I can just say CD Videoland and just press enter, all right? That's really easy, all right? I'm a programmer. I like easy, lazy things. This is easy for me. It would be a pain in the ass if relative wasn't a thing. It was always absolute. If it was always absolute, that means I would have to sit here and type C/C:/ program files and then Videoland and then press enter. All right, that is a pain. So relative is great for you navigating around where you currently are, but if you're giving instructions to someone, absolute is going to be typically the best way to go about it because everyone always has a beginning of their hard drive. Any questions on that? Look, I ain't going to C# right now, right, buddy? You get that shit out of here. I do like C# though. I just don't have very many reasons to still use it. It's just, it's growing in their community, and I'm happy for it because I think it is great. But no reasons to go to that level yet. The big issue is there's not enough extra modules and stuff like that I would use normally. They don't exist for C#, or if they do, it's not in a viable enough state for me to argue the change or to switch over. Are you good now, Kwai? Does anyone else have questions? If you got more questions, you ask away now, or else we're gonna be ending things up and we're gonna draw our name. They're all in Python, Java, C/C++, all of them libraries. Most of them, well, Python is almost in a Lua-like state where it's just a wrapper on C at this point in C++. Anything that comes out in C/C++, which is one of the most dominant and powerful languages, works in Python. So those languages are never going to go away, and Python just keeps getting empowered every time something else comes out on C. So that is still the preferred top-end language for most things done. Java just needs to die. It is dying because the people using it are also dying or retiring. C# is definitely, I think, is going to replace Java. Let's see here. I think that was all for now. Thank you. All right. Sweet. If that's all of the questions for now, we'll go and wrap up the stream. All right. Again, tomorrow we're going to move forward and finish up with our Unix stuff and move on and also talk about the files and directory permissions in Unix. And depending on how time is going, we'll also just close out with the mobile OS stuff so we can just keep on chugging on forward. I want to go here. All right, let's go ahead and pull our winners, shall we? For the all the stickers rewards. I got to pull this off stream because there is personal information of the participants on here. We use the plugin Raffle Press, so if you guys want to check that out, I'm not just hand picking someone, it is randomly picking someone via the plugin Raffle Press. All right, here we go. Are you guys ready for our winner? 3, 2, 1. And it's gonna be Skrillens. Skrillens is the name. Am I saying that right? Skrillians? Skrillians is the one who has won. Alright? Congratulations. I will send you an email here right after the stream. Please respond back as soon as possible. If you do not respond, you have 1 week to respond. If you do not respond in 1 week, then your prize will be re-raffled to someone else. Skrillex's younger brother. That's what I was kind of thinking too. Alrighty. Sweet, sweet. That is all I got for you guys. So unless you guys have more or any more questions, that is the end of our stream. And I shall see you guys on the next one.